I am super excited for today's episode. Today we're going to touch the college football 12-team playoff. This is going to be my prediction. I'm going to give you my national champion, and I'm super excited for this football season. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the sports edition of the Big Dad Energy Podcast. I am your host, Nick, aka BDE, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this podcast. I know there's a lot of haters out there that hate the idea of a 12-team playoff. I'm sorry, I love it. Okay, I think 4 was great, a lot better than the BCS, but I think when you get to 12, especially with the NIL right now, a lot of the talent is evening out. Not saying that everyone's as good as everybody else, but it's allowing some of those other programs to kind of compete and get in that bubble. And listen, look, you get a home playoff game. Like, let's say you're not a conference champion, but you're between 5 and 8, and you get a home playoff game. Like, could you imagine traveling up to Happy Valley at Penn State and playing in a whiteout in December? The weather's going to suck. The whole place is going to be rocking. If you've never seen a whiteout at Penn State, I haven't been there in person. I've seen it on TV and it radiates. I could just imagine how that playoff atmosphere is going to be. This is going to be crazy. It's going to be nuts. I'm super excited for this season. And I wouldn't get too caught up on week 0. You know, I know I'm a little late jumping on this. We already had 1 week of college football, but not everybody played. But I wouldn't take too much away from that Georgia Tech Florida State game. Georgia Tech's definitely good and they're definitely improved, but they're not going to win the ACC. Florida State's got a lot to work on, but it doesn't mean they're not going to win the ACC. Definitely excited for the season. Every game is going to mean a little bit more. So let's go ahead and dive in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to list out my top 12. I'll give you my conference champions, and then we'll take a look at the bracket, and then we'll roll through those games. And then at the end of the show, we'll get into the national champion. So at least who I believe is going to be the national champion. And at number 12, the highest rated group of 5, Mountain West champ, I have Boise State. Liberty can definitely give them a run for their money, but I definitely have Boise State winning the Mountain West and being the highest ranked group of 5. I just don't see them. I don't see the committee putting them any higher than 12. I got them slotted at number 12, which means that they'll be going on the road for that first week playoff game. At number 11, I have Clemson as the ACC runner-up. So I have them getting to the ACC championship game, but I don't have them winning it. You know, I think Dabo's going to get this team rallied around from the debacle of the season they had last year. They did some good things at the end of the year, went on a little winning streak right there. So they're going to be fired up and ready to go. I just don't think they have enough to actually win the conference. So I got them in at number 11. At number 10, I have Alabama. Alabama's been on the top of the mountain a lot over the past decade or so, decade plus. But with Nick Saban retiring, I do think they take a step back. Kalen DeBoer is a great coach, and they still have a lot of talent. They didn't have a lot hit the transfer portal, so he's got a lot to work with. I just think it's going to take an adjustment period, like usually any coaching change takes an adjustment period. So, but it's Alabama, and they have the talent, and I think they'll get into the playoff. You shouldn't have to worry about Alabama. Number 9, I got Penn State. So I know earlier I talked a little bit about that environment up there in Happy Valley, especially during a whiteout. Being at number 9 doesn't give them a home game. So they're usually one of those teams that's always in the mix. James Franklin's a great coach. I just don't know if they have enough to really push to be in that top 8. They're not going to win the Big Ten, but I do still think that they are a good enough football team to make the 12-team playoff. And number 8, I got Ole Miss. You may be able to really flip-flop Ole Miss and Alabama. We'll just see how the season turns out. But Ole Miss, I like what Lane Kiffin's doing down there. They have a lot of talent. They're definitely, obviously, being at 8, they're not going to win the SEC. The SEC is going to be one of those conferences, like the Big Ten, that I believe is just going to beat itself up. But I do think Ole Miss survives the gauntlet that is the SEC and makes the 12-team playoff. That gives them a home game also. So weather shouldn't be too horrible. Down in the South, it's not. Usually you get couple of the seasons, not all of them. So we'll see what the weather's like in Mississippi if this holds true down in December. So at number 7, I have the Ohio State. That's right. Ohio State is the Big Ten runner-up. I have them at number 7. I do not have them winning the Big Ten. Ryan Day's a good football coach. They do have a lot of talent. I'm just not a big believer in Will Howard. I know Chip Kelly's their new OC, and I know that man knows some X's and O's, knows some offense, can draw up some things. I know they got a lot of speed. So I do think they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game. They are going to make the playoff. I just don't think they're going to win the Big Ten. So I got them listed at number 7, which gives them a home game. It's going to be a crazy environment. In December, it's going to be cold. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be one heck of a rowdy environment. So good luck to whoever has to go up there. Number 6. I might get some flack for this. I have the University of Georgia. That's right. The Bulldogs are the SEC runner-up, in my opinion. They have a lot of talent, but they're young. Carson Beck returning. We'll see. I just don't know a lot about Georgia at the moment. We'll kind of have to see how this season plays out. They got Clemson this weekend. Hopefully it's not another stinker like it was a couple years ago when they in the opener, that 10-3 final, I think it was. So, we'll see. But Georgia's Georgia. Kirby Smart knows what he's doing. He's recruiting well. He's going to get that team fired up, ready to go. I just don't think they win the SEC. But they are going to make the playoff. You can book that. And plus, that environment, getting a home playoff game, hey now, I wouldn't want to go to Athens to play Georgia in the playoffs. So, good luck to whoever has to go to Athens. At number 5, I have the University of Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish didn't have the season they should have had last year. However, they have got improved by a win every year under Marcus Freeman. This is year 3 for Marcus. Went 9-10. Now we're in year 3. Notre Dame has a history of year 3 being the year. Lou Holtz won a national title in his third year. Brian Kelly got the Irish to the national championship game in his 3rd year. So we'll see what Marcus Freeman can cook up in South Bend this year. Riley Leonard transferring in, I think is going to be a huge boost. It gives him a dynamic athlete at quarterback. I know there's not a lot to take from him. He was hurt. He got hurt last year, so he's been rehabbing. But he seems like he's good to go. I definitely, he's a better quarterback than Sam Hartman. And plus they got Mike Denbrock, who just coached the former Heisman winner and Jaden Daniels at LSU last year. So I think this offense is going to be dynamic. Defense is solid under Al Golden. They've been doing really good. They're just going to take another step this year, and I feel like they're going to lock some people down. But I think that offense is going to be the story. I think the narrative is going to change in Notre Dame this year. I think their offense is finally catching up to the defense, and I think they're going to be able to put it together this year. We'll see how far that takes them, but at 11-1, 12-0 was what I'm predicting for this year. I think they get the 5 seed in the playoff. All right, now we're on to the top 4, where we got our conference champions. I'll start at number 4 with the Big 12 champ, Utah. Utah's first year in the Big 12, coming over from the Pac-12 as that conference dissolves slowly. They have Cam Rising coming back. I think this is his 7th year, which is nuts. The dude's a grown man playing a bunch of college kids at quarterback. I don't know if the Big 12 has enough firepower across the board. They lost Texas and they lost Oklahoma to the SEC. And they picked up some Pac-12 teams. So I just have Utah coming in and winning that conference this year. Now, number 3, my ACC champ. This took a lot of thought, a lot of thinking. I wanted to go with Florida State. Even after this past weekend, I still wanted to go with Florida State. But looking at their schedule compared to other schedules, I just don't know. Like, I know it's early losing to Georgia Tech, but I don't know if you can recover enough for what you have, because I don't see them running the table. I don't see them beating Notre Dame in South Bend in November. That game's on my birthday, by the way. I don't see them beating Miami. They have Florida, if I remember correctly, at the end of the year. I don't even know if they're going to get through that game. So my ACC champ is Miami. I think the Hurricanes are going to win the conference this year. I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything when they get to the playoff. I don't know a whole lot about Miami. I know Mario Cristobal's a great coach. I know they made a stupid decision the end of the Georgia Tech game last year, and they ended up fumbling the ball when all they had to do was just take a knee and run out the clock. But I have Miami winning the ACC this year. We'll see. I got them listed at number 3. We'll see what happens. All right, number 2. I have the University of Texas winning the SEC. I like what Sark's doing over there. I like the roster they put together. They gave it to Alabama last year. Physically, it's just like Alabama used to be the team that was bullying everybody based on their size, their physicality, and all that. Alabama got manhandled by Texas last year. And I just think another year in the SEC, it was probably a little bit of a risk taking a newcomer to the conference to win the conference, but they don't have divisions anymore. So it's solely based on record and conference record on how that seeding can get worked out. And I just think Texas has the firepower to win the SEC this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the SEC championship game and lost to Georgia. However, this is the direction that I'm taking. And my number 1 team, Big Ten champs, Oregon Ducks. Yes, I have another newcomer winning the conference the first year they're in their new conference. Dan Lanning's doing a phenomenal job over there in Oregon. Dan Lanning knows what he's doing up there. I think they're going to get this team fired up, ready to go. I think they're going to be a tough out. I really do in the Big Ten. I think Michigan takes a step back this year. I don't think they make the playoff. USC is USC. They're not gonna contend for the Big Ten this year. So the only real competition that Oregon's going to have this year is Ohio State, and I have them beating Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. We'll take a look, but that's the top 12 in the conference champs right there. Now let's go ahead and dive into the bracket. All right. So as you all can see, we have number 5 Notre Dame versus number 12 Boise State. That game's in South Bend. I don't think the weather's going to be a big deal for Boise State because, they're used to it. However, at the talent level, I just don't think that Boise State has enough firepower to come into South Bend and win a playoff game. I don't. So I have Notre Dame winning that game. Next, we have number 6 Georgia versus number 11 Clemson. It's a rematch from the opener this year. I could be wrong with this. The committee has a history of adjusting the seeding so we don't get a lot of rematches. So this may not happen. But if this were to happen, I just don't think Clemson has the firepower to beat Georgia, especially going into Athens to win that game. I think Carson Beck and crew handle business, and Georgia wins that game. Next, we have Ohio State and Alabama. Number 7, Ohio State, and number 10, Alabama. Alabama going to Ohio State. That's going to be a phenomenal game. Kalen DeBoer versus Ryan Day. Jalen Milroe versus Will Howard. Like I said earlier, I don't have a lot of faith in Will Howard. However, I think that environment's going to be a lot for Alabama. Alabama's used to having being the home team and having their fans behind them. I know the fans travel well, so they may get into the stadium. That's going to be a bloodbath. But I do have Ohio State winning that game. So, number 7 Ohio State beating number 10 Alabama. And then we have number 8 Ole Miss versus number 9 Penn State. Means Penn State's got to go down to Ole Miss. They don't have Happy Valley and the Whiteout behind them. I don't think they win that game. I got Ole Miss winning that game. So we have Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State, and Ole Miss moving on to the quarterfinals of the playoff. All right, the quarterfinals. We got number 4 Utah versus 5 Notre Dame. That's going to be a great game. However, I don't know if Utah has the firepower on defense to beat Notre Dame. I don't think they can stop that offense. Now we'll see if that offense turns, if Notre Dame's offense doesn't click the way I think it's going to click with Riley Leonard and Mike Denbrock. Jeremiah Love coming out of the backfield. They got some weapons at receiver, especially ones that transferred in, and Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell. I just don't think Utah has the defense to stop Notre Dame's offense. And then Notre Dame's defense should be elite. So I don't know. Utah, Cam Rising's good, really good. That offense at Utah's going to be really good. I just don't think they have the firepower to pull it off. So Notre Dame winning that matchup. Next, we got number 8 Ole Miss versus number 1 Oregon. That's going to be another great game, but Ole Miss traveling up to Eugene, Oregon in the middle of December. Oh, no, that wouldn't be a home game for Oregon. Scratch that. I got ahead of myself. Wherever that game takes place. I don't know how they have the who gets who and what bowl in this round. I just don't know if Ole Miss has the firepower to beat Oregon. I got Oregon winning that game. Next, we got number 6 Georgia versus number 3 Miami. Mario Cristobal, one hell of a job winning the ACC, getting Miami to the first 12-team playoff. That's where it ends. Georgia's going to win this game. They're going to be fired up. They're pissed off from last year for not making the playoff. They took it out on Florida State. We'll say Florida State didn't have a lot of their starters. However, they took it out on Florida State. And they took it out on Clemson in round 1. They're going to take it out on Miami in round 2. They got Georgia winning that game. Now, number 7, Ohio State, number 2, Texas. This is going to be one hell of a game. I think these two teams match up really, really, really well. I don't know if Ryan Day and Will Howard can get the job done. They definitely have the firepower. I'm not a big believer in Ryan Day in big games. He hasn't been able to beat Michigan. I think they do end up beating Michigan this year, but it's not. I think it's more of a testament to how depleted Michigan is, not how great Ohio State is. So we'll see, but I got Texas and Quinn Ewers winning that game. All right, so to recap the quarterfinals, we got Notre Dame, Oregon, Georgia, and Texas moving on to the semifinals. All right, this leaves us with number 5 Notre Dame versus number 1 Oregon, and number 6 Georgia versus number 2 Texas. All right, let's start with Notre Dame versus Oregon. That's going to be one hell of an offense to deal with. Dan Lanning's got one hell of a defense up there in Oregon. This is going to be a game. Notre Dame versus Oregon is going to be a game. I think both coaches are going to have their teams fired up, ready to go for this one. Assuming everyone's healthy by game time, University of Notre Dame is going to beat Oregon and move on to the national championship game. I think they got one hell of a job going on this year. I just don't think it's their year. They got a bright future though. I think Oregon's going to win the Big Ten for the next couple of years. They're going to kind of take hold of that conference. So a national championship berth is on the horizon for the Oregon Ducks, just not this year, in my opinion. All right, Georgia versus Texas. Again, another potential rematch. However, I don't think the committee could really avoid this rematch if it was going to happen. I'm sure with seeding they maybe can, but Georgia would have to fall pretty far back, I think, or vice versa, for this rematch not to happen, or someone would have to lose. So we're going to get this game again. I don't know who wins the regular season matchup. Let's say Texas wins the regular season matchup. It's really hard to beat a team twice. Let's say Texas does, though. They win the SEC. It's extra hard to beat a team 3 times. I think Texas wins this game. I have to see more from Carson Beck. And I have to see those young dudes, Georgia, really step their game up and keep Georgia on the level that they've been at the past few years. Georgia's going to be around for a long time. Kirby's got that university rolling and that program going in the right direction. I just don't think it's their year to make it back to the championship game, and I got Texas winning this one. Which leaves us with the University of Notre Dame and the University of Texas. The Fighting Irish versus the Longhorns for the national championship. Talk about a game. Before I get into this game, I just got to say, the way that we've just talked about everything, right, and set the stage, everyone's complaining about the 12-team playoff and what it's going to do to college football. We had some great games this postseason, if it is anywhere close to my prediction. Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Ole Miss, Penn State. You know what I'm saying? Like Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Texas. Like Notre Dame, Oregon, Georgia, Texas. Like these are some great games. How could you not be excited? Even if your team didn't make it, if you're a college football fan, you got to be excited about this playoff. I just don't see any way around that. I think the 12-team playoff is great for the sport, and I hope they don't need to expand anymore. I don't want this to turn into March Madness like it is for the college basketball. We don't need 60 teams. 12, I think, is the sweet spot. Actually, I thought 8 was a sweet spot, but I'm good at 12. Just keep it at 12. We don't need to go to 16. We don't need to mess with it. Leave it at 12. But Notre Dame, Texas, that national championship game, that's going to be one hell of a game. I'm just telling you right now, it's going to be one hell of a game. And two storied universities with long history, especially with each other, for the national title. It's going to be one hell of a game. I'll leave the X's and O's for the experts. But give me the University of Notre Dame to win a national title for the first time since 1988. The long-running streak of not winning a championship is over. The University of Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to be your national champions after the season is done. Health, of course, plays a pivotal role in it. And this game could really go either way. Any of these games could go either way. Oregon could easily beat Notre Dame if Notre Dame doesn't show up or injuries or what have you. But in my prediction, the way I have things laid out, University of Notre Dame Fighting Irish are your national champions, and they beat Texas in a hard-fought game. I wouldn't be surprised if that game came down to the last drive or went to overtime. That's it, everybody. This season's already off to a great start. Every game is going to mean a little bit more, like I said earlier, as they all fight for a spot in the first ever 12-team playoff. The conference championships are going to play a huge role in providing pivotal rest. The teams that aren't in the top 12 that don't make their conference championship game, they're going to be extremely motivated, and they're going to feel like they deserve their spot, and they're going to take it out on their opponents. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Big Dad Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Nick, aka BDE. You can follow me on X, Instagram, at Big Dad Energy Pods. Until next time, see y'all later.